Hi, Stories Channel here.
Today we are going to take a look at a 2020 horror film called The Butchers. Two brothers named Owen and Oswald are seen standing together, while Oswald digs the ground, and they both discuss their late mother. While they speak, a car comes and parks not far away. Oswald runs and hides nearby. The man driving the car named Stephen comes out to check what was wrong with it, assuring the lady in the car that there is nothing to worry about. She becomes suspicious of something and calls out to him to tell him that someone is out there, but before she could tell him, Oswald knocks him out. She goes out to wake him up but is ambushed by the brothers and knocked out too. In the next scene, she is seen tied to a railing with chains, and Stephen walks up to her and he speaks to her about how she must have thought about such a thing happening, but never knew it could happen to her. He finds out her name is Celeste and tells her his name is Owen. Oswald appears, but he tells him to go and he leaves. She hears a growl not far off and is scared further. Outside, Oswald is seen dragging Stephen's body and cutting him. The next day, Oswald is seen bringing a cup of milk to Celeste, who is now pregnant and locked in a cage. She takes the cup of milk and drinks it. Oswald brings her out of the cage, and she lies down, and he ties her up. In the next scene, a guy named Chris records his girlfriend Taylor and their friend Jenna, who is in the backseat of the car they were all in. Then he turns the camera to Mike, who is Jenna's boyfriend, and the one driving. Suddenly their car stops and Mike goes out to check out the overheating engine. Mike goes forward to look for a gas station, and he goes to ask Jenna if she wants to walk with him, but she refuses. Jenna explains to Taylor what's going on. She talks about how Mike hasn't been completely honest with her recently, and Taylor offers to go with Mike to ensure he comes back quickly. In the next scene, Oswald is seen carving up a dead animal. Later on, Chris and Jenna are seen speaking, and Jenna tells him they must be around 100 miles away from home. She takes a roll of toilet paper and goes to do her business. She finds a tripwire on the ground, and intentionally hits it with her hand, and walks away. Oswald is alerted miles away and runs to her. Taylor catches Mike staring at her and tells him about how she feels his relationship is over. They both go into the woods to make out and hear a sound, which makes them stop because Mike suspects that their friends are coming, but Oswald watches them not far away. After that, Jenna tells Chris she found a tripwire and found blood on a tree, but he tells her it's normal and it could have been a hunter's trail, but she doesn't believe him since it is not hunting season. Meanwhile, Mike speaks to Taylor and asks if she is worried about Jenna finding out they were both making out since she is her best friend, but she says Jenna is not her best friend. After that, Chris and Jenna go to the blood print and he agrees it looks weird. Chris tells Jenna he is not happy, she has not been happy during the ride, and asks why, but she tells him life happened. In the next scene, Mike and Taylor get to the gas station and notice it looks ancient. Owen greets them and they tell him they have a car that broke down. They tell him they're headed to Spencerville and he tells them he is going to call a tow truck to come to pick them up. Owen picks up his phone and places a call to a guy named Williard who seems to be a tow truck driver, explaining their predicament to the driver. They tell him they have friends back at their car, which startles him. After that, Jenna and Chris are in the car. When a man walks out of the bush and takes their picture, they see him and are freaked out. Meanwhile, Mike and Taylor wait for the tow truck, but Taylor decides to leave, impatient to wait for the tow truck. Mike hears Owen making some noise trying to get a lever to budge, and Mike offers to help him out. Owen knocks him out while he turns his back to help him out. In the next scene, Chris and Jenna are seen going to check out the man who was watching them. Meanwhile, Taylor is on her way back to the car, but she hears a weird noise in the woods and decides to go back to the gas station. Chris and Jenna try to make their way to the gas station, while Chris holds a tool he took from the car as protection. Taylor gets back to the gas station, and Owen tells her Mike is in the bathroom and she decides to wait outside for him. She gets impatient and goes to the bathroom to check on him. She doesn't Mike in the bathroom and becomes suspicious. She grabs a crowbar and tries to escape, but Owen catches her and knocks her out. After that, he takes her to a shed where he has Mike tied up. Owen asks Mike who Jenna is since he has been making love with Taylor, and he shocks him with a shotgun which knocks him out. Meanwhile, Chris and Jenna find another picture of Mike and Taylor making out, which breaks Chris' heart. While they speak, Oswald tries to attack them from behind, but they notice him and move away. Oswald injures Chris while Jenna makes a run for it. Oswald goes after Jenna, but doesn't find her and goes back. Chris tries to escape by crawling, but Oswald gets to him. In the next scene, Jenna finds Owen driving a car and tells him about the crazy guy that attacked her and her friends, and he tells her he has a phone in his house that she can use to call the police. She notices some pictures of his victims on his walls and he pulls up a gun and points it at her, and gives her some rules majorly, which is to not speak out of turn, and threatens great consequences if she doesn't listen. Celeste is seen trying to set herself free from the place she is tied to but remains unsuccessful. Owen and Jenna go to the truck and he tells her to drag the body in his truck out, and she refuses, and he puts a gun to her face and forces her to drag the body into the house. She takes the body in and notices Celeste struggling, and Owen knocks her out. In the next scene, Oswald is seen reading to Celeste and struggles to read, and Owen helps him pronounce the word he cannot pronounce well. Celeste falls asleep, tired. Meanwhile, Taylor and Jenna are seen strapped to some chairs and startled by Owen, who comes to meet them and introduces himself to them. He tells them he is going to make a little demonstration. He calls Oswald, who brings Chris tied up, and Owen punches Taylor for staring at Oswald. He tells them Oswald will make a presentation to show them what will happen to them if they don't do as they are told, and tells Oswald to go ahead. Oswald goes ahead and eliminates Chris. Owen tells Oswald to take Chris' body out while it is still fresh, and Taylor vomits. Owen takes out Taylor's mouth gag and cleans her up. Taylor asks for Mike, and Owen tells her he's going to join them soon, but may not be in one piece. Owen tells Jenna that Mike has been cheating on her with Taylor, but finds out she already knows. Meanwhile, Oswald guts up Chris outside. Jenna tries to look for a way to escape and signals for Taylor to help her break the chains that were holding them by pulling on it with their weight. Owen is outside taking a smoke while Oswald goes on with his business. Owen goes out on a ride. Jenna and Taylor successfully break free, and Oswald runs in after hearing some noise. The girls trick him to come in and find a way to lock him inside the prison they were held in, leaving him furious. Jenna and Taylor make a run for it, and Oswald finds a way to break free of the hold and goes after them with his knife. In the next scene, Owen arrives at the gas station and goes to Mike's unconscious body, and Mike asks him why he is doing what he is doing, but he says it is because it needs to be done. He tells him he needs to put him out again, and gives him a choice to hit him in the head or shock him to knock him unconscious, but decides to use both on him instead. After that, Taylor and Jenna find their way back to the road and get to where their car is, and find Willard, the tow truck driver, that they were kidnapped by Owen and Oswald, and he tells them he doesn't know Oswald, but he knows Owen. They beg him to get them out of there, and he tells them to get in their car, while he carries them to a safe place with the tow truck. In the next scene, Taylor speaks to Jenna about her and Mike, and she tells him she doesn't want to talk about it, but Taylor thanks her for getting them out of there safely. The tow truck stops in the middle of nowhere, and the ladies were surprised as to why they stopped. The tow truck driver steps out of the car with a gun and walks up to them and tells them to get out of the car or else he will shoot them through the windshield. They get down and he asks them for their name and introduces himself. Then, he tells them to turn around and start walking away. Jenna refuses to walk, but he threatens to shoot her, which makes her listen and walk away along with Taylor. Oswald is seen running in the woods looking for the ladies. Meanwhile, Willard was seen leading the ladies through a bush, when suddenly Oswald comes up and cuts Taylor and finishes her off for a demonstration to Jenna if she doesn't do what she's told. They get back to their shed, and Willard asks for Oxford, and Oswald tells him he's in his den. Jenna notices someone growling not far away, who seems to be the one they referred to as Oxford. Willard tells Oswald there is no point in eliminating the women when they can use them for special purposes, and Oswald tells him not to talk to him that way because he doesn't call the shots. Willard tells Oswald to let Jenna into another cage, while Jenna steals a sharp tool and hides it in her back pocket. Willard tells Oswald to fix the door from the cage he was locked in, but he refuses. Willard tells him to do as he is told, and calls him a boy, which annoys Oswald, who tells him not to call him a boy. Willard points a gun at him, but Oswald walks towards the gun and tells him Owen will finish him off if he harms him, which Willard laughs and walks off, which annoys Oswald. Jenna notices Celeste in the room she is locked in and asks her how long she has been there, but notices her tongue has been cut off. She cuts off the rope around her wrist and tells her she will find a way to get her out of there. She hands the knife to Celeste, but Celeste sees it as an opportunity and uses the knife to commit suicide. Oswald walks in wondering what the ruckus is and finds Celeste dead, making him angry, and he knocks Jenna out. In the next scene, Willard runs into Owen and angrily tells him that Oswald had eliminated one of the women. Owen gets home and screams at Oswald asking him what happened, and Oswald points him to go see Celeste's body. Owen screams at Oswald and tells him he is stupid, and Oswald reacts back in anger, but Owen tries to calm him down, but Oswald refuses to calm down, so he asks him to go take a walk while he cleans up. Owen walks to where Celeste's body is and speaks to her and later carries her body out. Jenna wakes up from the couch Oswald placed her unconscious body on. Willard remembers he left something at the shed and turns back to go get it. Jenna goes to the parked car and finds Mike in the backseat tied up, and tries to wake him up. Owen takes Celeste's body to where they cut meat to do his business. Jenna loses the rope used to tie up Mike and they try to escape, but Mike notices something in the car and tells Jenna to get in the truck. Jenna makes some noise trying to close up the trunk. Mike picks up Owen's shotgun in the front seat and tells Jenna he is going to get back at Owen. Jenna begs him to leave him and let them escape, but he doesn't listen and takes the key out of the ignition so she doesn't leave, but doesn't know Owen's not the only one there. He walks in with the gun, and she walks in behind him. He searches the house but doesn't find anyone and goes out and finds Celeste's body but is attacked by Owen, who points a knife at him. Mike finds a way to pick up his gun and shoots Owen but is later shot by Williard. Jenna later uses Owen's knife to eliminate Williard. Jenna bends over Mike, who is bleeding, but he warns her to leave. Oswald gets there and goes on to free Oxford to attack them, and Oxford goes on to attack Mike. Oxford tries to attack Jenna, but she hits him with a shotgun and tries to escape. She makes a run for it, but Oxford chases her, and she runs into a car and tries to escape. Almost about to escape in the car, Oswald shoots her through the car windows, and Oxford has his way with her. Thanks for watching, guys.